I took care of all of the secrets that I needed to take care of. I have deployed the application to the uh, Azure Functions just to ensure that, because I'm going to need the function key and I needed to get that off screen as well. So they did successfully deploy. You can see them in here. There's Twitch subscription add and subscription remove and subscription registration. Um, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play live with my subscriptions on these and set up some code to take care of this. Um, so what I had started before, if we go back into VS Code, I started this untitled thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save this. I'm going to create a new folder in here. This is a convention that I use for a lot of this, and I'm still loving it. The notification for Twitter just went out. That's good. It's getting better on the time too. Like this is a minute and 20 seconds in, whereas before it was like taking 3 minutes to even get the notification from Twitch. So maybe they put more hamsters in the wheels or something like that. And anyways, it's taking less time. But what I want to do is I'm going to create a new folder here called config. And this is kind of my own way of doing things. So basically, we're going to do some configuration as code for the subscriptions, and it's going to look very much like this. I'm going to call this, I'm going to save it as, you're not going to be able to see the save box when it comes up, but I'm going to save it as subscriptions .json. All right, so my subscriptions.json is in here. If I look at my registration subscriptions stuff here, I have like a pretty good base for this. So I'm going to basically copy this and adjust. Actually, you know what I could probably do is I could probably just set it from that. That's going to be easier. So I'm going to take this right here. I'm going to go into one of my untitles. I like to have a whole bunch of these untitles open when I'm working. It's how I do things. Instead of like doing everything down in the actual terminal, I'll do things up here. That way it's kind of repeatable. But we need to replace stream name with Twitch name because that's what we're using for this in the code. So what I can do with this is if I were to take this and put a comma in front of it and then convert to JSON. Helps if I have all of this in there. Yeah, so it gives me the count. That's just that makes me a sad panda quite a bit. There's always a problem with this. Let me try doing it without that. There we go. That looks a little better. Now I'm going to actually switch this over to PowerShell Core. And the reason for that is by default, PowerShell Core uses 2 spaces instead of 4. So it looks a little tight, a little bit tighter than that. So yeah, that looks much better. That looks more JSON-y, in my opinion, than what's been done in the past. So I'm going to just go ahead and take this and do set content encoding UTF-8 path and get the path of this file and do this. So that should have updated this, and now we have everybody in here with their Twitch name and their Twitter name, and all of that is hunky-dory. So this is going to be the thing that I use to actually update who's going to be subscribed going forward. That is my plan. And I'll have some automation built off to automatically fire off and update this whenever somebody's done. But for now, I'm just going to write some PowerShell code to test against the actual live API. So in this registering subscription thing here, I'm going to copy something from up here in case anybody's looking at how to do this. But it goes like this. I have this set to be actually, what did I call it when I set that up? Func code. I'm importing this from a file and using just the import CLI XML, and it's going to use the PAPI, is that what it's called? Whatever it's called. The secure API that saves secure strings into XML formats using import CLI XML and export as CLI XML. So that's how I'm doing it. But so that people can figure out how to do that on their own without this, we're going to work on it this way. So the func code, I'm using function authentication on this. So if I go back in here and I look at the Twitch subscription registration endpoint, I have it requiring authorization level function, which means you have to provide the function code to actually use it. It only does post, and route is null, which I don't even know if that's good. But yeah, it's fine. Route doesn't need anything in it. I'm not passing anything to it. So we have to post to this, and we need the code. So code has to be passed in like a couple of different ways. It needs to be either passed in as the code query string, or there is a what's it called, header that you have to pass. So I'm going to search for this because I can't remember what the header is called. Yeah, it's X functions key. So I need this header name for later. But anyways, yeah, so since I'm doing that, I need to use a function code. And the reason for that is I definitely don't want this one public. I want some kind of authentication in front of it. So I'm going to manage it that way with the function key, which is a decent way of doing this. So the next step here is to build out a function to manage this endpoint with that file. So I want to be able to take the JSON file path and pass it as the body into the request. So it would be possible for me to do taking it as a JSON string or taking in an object and converting it to JSON. Um, at work, I kind of standardized on us using files, and the reason for that is that you're not always dealing with text for things, and you can reuse more code if you're working with files, and you do raw byte analysis on files or pulling in bytes and sending bytes over the tube. So I kind of steered away from us taking directly string inputs of JSON or taking in objects and converting them to JSON, and standardize on let's just point to a file. Um, and it does kind of set the burden on you as a user to create a file first, but it does kind of get in your head that we should be doing infrastructure as code. And so these files should exist already. We should already have these files. We shouldn't be doing things on the fly. So I think that kind of sets a good precedent. So I'm going to keep with that theme here. Um, let's just say that that's my standard. It's not what everybody else uses, but it's not like it's a company-wide standard or anything like that. I don't speak for LinkedIn. But my own personal standard on that is to use that. So I'm going to do this as Invoke, and I'm just going to use the name of it, subscription, Twitch subscription registration. And since I am invoking a remote endpoint, invoke is the correct term here. I don't care what anyone begrudgingly dislikes the invoke verb, but invoke is correct here. So in parameters, I'm going to need a few things. I need the function code. I need the base URI, and I need the file path. So I'm going to do file path because that's going to be the only thing that's settable right away. So parameter, attribute, mandatory, validate, not null or empty. Get some more screen real estate here. String, not string, path, right? I'm not going to do literal path. I'm not going to care because I'm just going to pass this to a path and do get content to do that. I'm also not going to do validation. I'm going to let the get content command handle the fact that it doesn't exist, and let that pass through. So I know that there is an entire like 50-line thing you can do for a path parameter in PowerShell. So while I'm on the subject of path parameters, one of the things that I was looking at doing in PowerShell a while back was adding like a path accelerator. And this path accelerator would accept, either a file or folder, but it would only allow you to bind if the file or folder existed. So it would automatically do this. So you'd be able to do something like path, path, and put this as parameter mandatory required. So I wanted to do something like this, and this path would be like, you could pass it as a string, you could pass it as a, system.io directory, system.io file, whatever. Like it would figure out from a lot of different types what it is, perform validation on it, and automatically fail binding on the parameter if it didn't exist. Because there's so much boilerplate code out there on functions about checking the path, making sure it exists, making sure all of these different things are right about it, and that it's real, that it's resolved. And really, like, that's boilerplate code that I think PowerShell should have been handling from the beginning, and not something that we should have been burdening users with. But it never took enough flight. I needed to actually do an entire full RFC on it, and I ultimately didn't feel like putting in the time and effort to doing it. So if anyone ever gets into the paths and you're doing lots of work with files, then talk to me and I can, if you want to do the RFC and you want to do the coding for it, I'd be more than happy to give you guidance on where to go with that. Um, anyways, I digress. Every time I have to do this, though, I think of that issue and I'm like, maybe I really should have put in all that effort. Um, so Marco is bringing up begin, process, and end in here. Uh, believe it or not, I do not think that all three of these must be in every function. I think that you should only have the ones that you have. I also think you should use them correctly, and by that I mean by my own opinionated way of what's correct. For example, begin is setup code for things that are going to be reused over and over again in the loop and process, and end is for cleanup code of things that you had to do in the process block. If you don't actually have any kind of like static things that you need to set, don't use begin. And if you are not actually taking anything from the pipeline, don't use process or begin. Use end. Uh, so that's my own opinion on that. Fight me IRL. I'll be at the. Uh, there isn't a finally in these functions, right? Like that. So there. That's another thing. While I'm on this topic, while I'm going into uh, while I'm going into the things that PowerShell should do. So here's something you should know about the end block. The end block will not always execute. So if something in the pipeline terminates early, your end block may not run. So you can't put real cleanup code in the end block and ensure it gets done. So if you had something that like sets up a connection to like a database and your end closes the connection to the database, but in the pipeline, something terminates early, it's quite possible that your cleanup code won't run. Uh, and there's been discussions about a finally block or something like that that we could add in here that would look something like finally, and it would be guaranteed to run at the end of the function, um, regardless of any terminations upstream, downstream, whatever. Uh, because there's just so much cleanup code that like you can't actually take care of because things can terminate the pipeline and then your end block doesn't run. Yeah. So, uh, rant about functions. I could do that all day long. I I can't give everyone on the PowerShell creation team, a any crap because I certainly could not think through all of this stuff beforehand either. Um, so I give them props for making it work as well as they did. Um, thank you, Bruce. Um, anyways, so come find me if you're at the PowerShell Summit. Definitely come find me, and I'm always happy to rant about all the things in PowerShell. Um, sometimes if you catch me, Thomas, and Joel, so Thomas Rayner and Joel Bennett, so Mr. Thomas Rayner and Jay Cool. If you find all three of us together somewhere, definitely stop by and drop in the conversation because I guarantee you we are bitching about esoteric PowerShell issues. It's so okay. So the path is one. We need the function secret. Um, that also needs to be mandatory. it also needs to be validate not null or empty. It is also a string, and it is called function secret. And then the next one is going to be a hidden one that I want to be able to set for troubleshooting purposes and whatnot, but I don't necessarily want visible. So this is going to be parameter. Ooh, weird brackets. Don't show. String function URI. And I'm going to copy and paste in this function URI that I've already gone and looked up. All right, so actually don't need a begin or process in this because it's only a single operation. I prefer to use end on that. I forget why I landed on end. I think that I started seeing it being used heavily inside PowerShell commandlets. So the actual like commandlets in PowerShell written in C#. A lot of the code for anything that doesn't do any pipeline operations is written in the end block. So I think that's kind of where I started. And then I think I saw somewhere Bruce Payet saying, I'm probably butchering his name, sorry, Bruce, that that's the correct place to put code that doesn't do anything with pipeline processing. I could be wrong on that, but it was somewhere. Anyways, I've stuck to that. So end is where that goes. And we're gonna do some fun stuff here. We know that we're gonna have a header coming up, but params, headers, equal function secret, and then that's all that's needed there. URI equals function URI method equals post IRM should you invoke web requests IWR. At params. So before I do that though, I need to get the content because I'm going to have body equal body. And then I'm also going to have content type equal application JSON. So body on this is going to be body equal, I'm going to trap this in a try catch. So try body equal get content raw path and catch is going to be rethrowing this. So ps commandlet dot throw terminating error. All right, so basically rethrowing an error from there, and that should tell me that the path doesn't exist. So that should be the extent of this function to do this, and we would call it with invoke subscription, Twitch subscription registration dash path, path to this file. I could do a relative path, but I'm going to just do the full path because why not? I guess relative path makes sense. We'll do that. I'm going to wrap it in here though. I've gotten the habit too of using forward slashes in my paths to denote folder stuff. Just makes things a little bit easier. Some things on Windows, some things on Linux will not work with the backslash. That would be surprising, and those are usually things that are passing off to something underneath the like the underlying APIs in Linux. But the most of the stuff, you know, in higher level PowerShell is gonna work with forward slash or backslash in Linux, but like 100% of everything in Windows works with the forward slash. So I'm like, okay, fine, I won't worry about backslash anymore. And function secret is func code is what I've imported. So this doesn't return anything, and I thought about this while I was doing this, that I kind of want to return something. Like, I know what's going to be removed, what was sent, what was already done. So I'm thinking that this is a good opportunity to add way more code than needed to be added in the first place. So in here, you know, I get the current subscriptions. I have the subscriptions that are passed in. I have the ones that are going to be removed, and I have the ones that are going to be added. So I think what I want is a yeah. Somebody recommended that I rename my channel Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch for this series. I thought that was kind of clever. Uh, I definitely do not like the whole Marky Mark jokes thing, though. It's kind of a, you know, it gets old. Uh, oh yeah, was you? Oh, but yeah, I digress. So let's inject way more code in this than we actually needed to, because that's just the baller thing to do. And I'm going to create a new model here, and this is going to be a Twitch registration response. .cs, and it is going to be a JSON-y thing. So I'm going to just copy some of this so that we can do this. Twitch, so rename this so I can copy the name here, copy paste, Twitch subscription registration. It's gonna call it response, right? Twitch subscription registration response. Yeah, we want something really long, really obnoxious. because that's how I roll. Do closing this, closing that. So what's going to be on this is there's going to be four things. Yes, four. The subscription, a list of subscriptions that have been submitted, a list of subscriptions that we're currently subscribed, a list of subscriptions that we're going to remove, and a list of subscriptions that we're going to add. So we already have that as subscription. It is just called a Twitch subscription. Yes. So I want to steal this kind of thing here because this is kind of how it's going to look. So this one is going to be requested subscriptions and requested subscriptions. Instead of Twitch user, it's going to be Twitch subscription. I need to add collections generic in there. So I'm basically going to repeat this for So if your name is really Marco, let me tell you, like the whole like Marco, Marky Mark, that is so like I'm a fighting words, right? Like calling me Marco. My name's not Marco. Like there's no O in my name anywhere. It's I don't know, like something that still rubs me wrong from elementary school, right? Like deep psychosis to deal with in therapy or something. Friendo. Hey, friendo. Yeah, that's weird. So there's request subscriptions, there's current subscriptions, then there's also remove, add subscriptions, and remove subscriptions. Okay, so the goal here is to actually respond with this type and have it serialized as some JSON. And I'm not sure if the OK result, no, the OK result needs to do the string, so we have to do some serialization on it. Anyways, getting 40 steps ahead of myself. In the Twitch subscription registration code, at the beginning here, we're going to go ahead and create a, man, I can't be satisfied. Response, so var response equals new Twitch registration response. Hooray! And one of the things that we can do immediately is response dot request subscriptions equals Twitch subscriptions. So we get that in already. After we get the current subscriptions, we can set that as well. So response dot current subscriptions equals current subscriptions. Oh, we got a type mismatch. Ah, that's right. So this returns a list of Twitch subscriptions. So actually, I can do this inside here. That's fine. I'll set this to new list of Twitch subscription. Actually, you know what? Screw it. Like, I could get the full thing. Why not? So this returns what type? Twitch webhook subscription. So I'm gonna just update the model because I'm lazy. Current subscription is Twitch webhook subscription. All right. Update that in here. Then I should be able to do current subscription equals current subscriptions. That'll have a lot more information on it actually than the subscription does. Because the Twitch API returns way more data, and we've captured all that, so that'll be fun. So I'm wondering if I don't want to call that. I'm not sure if these asynchronous collections would play nice with me assigning them somewhere, so I'm gonna have to create some lists. So underneath here, we're gonna have the response dot, and this is the add subscriptions equals new list of subscription. So we're going to initialize a new one there, and then we're going to add it in here. It's not add subscription, it should just be add. Oh, this helps. There we go. All right, so that's going to add that to that list, and then we need to do basically the same thing down here for remove. So copy. This should be remove subscriptions equals list new, and then underneath here, copy this line of happiness without all the indentation madness, and this should be this right here, and this should be remove subscription. Right, so that means that down here what we need to do is before we do the OK results, we need to do some serialization. So response string equals JSON convert dot serialize object, pass in the response, then this needs to be var, and then this should be OK result object. no, we're not gonna object result and response string. All right, so this means that we should be able to get a response string back uh, that has JSON in it. So we should be able to see what all was requested, what all was found, what all is being added, what all is being removed. So that should be good to go in theory. So I'm going to go ahead and do a commit on all this code. Add response support and what did I name that function? So I'm going to go in here and redeploy the code. And click through a bunch of things. Yes, and while that's building and running, I'm going to step away momentarily. Snacks are quite important, man. I can't do much caffeine beyond the morning, otherwise I won't sleep all night. So I have like a cutoff time. No caffeine after 2. So that's running. So we can play with our new function here. And hopefully it should blow up in our face. I mean, work perfectly. So let's go ahead and go. And there's nothing like doing this with a live system, live access to everything. I mean, why not? Cannot validate function secret. The argument is null or empty. I may not have that completely. We good now? We cool? Response status code does not indicate success. 500 internal error. Well, that's awesome. Let's look at the outputs from here, and I got nothing. That's really helpful. All right. Well, trying to figure out what's happening and why it's not working when there's no output is definitely not helpful. Response code does not indicate success. Internal server error. All right, let's go over to the browser here. Go into the function. Go into subscription registration. Go to monitor and see if this has errors. It has nothing. Could take some time to see those errors. Let me look at this. go down here, go to logs here, and run this. Internal server error, but I'm not seeing anything over here. That's really helpful. I could have the wrong URI. It's quite possible. But that looks right. Path is good. It's not complaining about the file. Application JSON, method post, URI, X function key, function secret. Yeah, that should work. I'm going to have to do verbose and then hide the screens. It's still on the Firefox anyways, so my mistake is good. Yeah, that's awesome. I might have to run this locally to see what's going on. So there's a lot of changes in this too, so it's quite possible that it's not even related to my most recent changes, because this is all new code to be executing all at once. So show this again. This is what I'm getting right. Like, it does a 972 byte payload, which I think is okay. Let me see. Equals error 0, and then dot exception. Force it to show some more stuff. It's not extremely helpful. So there's also a response on this, dot response, exception dot response, and content dot headers dot. Oh, I'm on 6.12. I don't think that should matter. In fact, that should be better. I'm going to read as string async. Consume stream serialize HTTPnet content load buffer. Oh, that's the standard thing. Like, it's already tried to read the there's no good way of doing that. The headers there, the request message dot content dot it's harder to troubleshoot. I'm going to switch back to PowerShell, Windows PowerShell. One thing that I'm not extremely happy with in PowerShell core and the web commandlets is that in an effort to display the content of the message in a friendly way when something bad happens, we actually consume the body stream or the content stream, and it can't be accessed again by the user. So you totally lose the body from anything that we do there. So that's kind of a pain point for me. So now that I've switched over to here, I need to re-import this function code. I need to run this and see if I get one other thing that I need to do is noticed it on some other things. When you're accessing PowerShell, when you're accessing Azure functions from the from PowerShell 5.1, you need to enable TLS 1.2, and I've got the better TLS module that I created installed here. So if I run this, it enables TLS without screwing up any of the other ones. So it's not necessarily on 6, which is why it didn't fail with that. But I'm going to run, no, not all that, just down here. Invoke Twitch. Internal server error. Response. Method post. Internal server error. Doesn't look like there is any message on it at all, so that's not really helpful. Let me go back to the site and see if the monitoring on this is updated now that we've had some time. The monitor on functions takes up to 5 minutes, it says, right? So the other thing I can do is I can go look at the app insights for this and see the errors on it. Back up here, overview, app insights. Oh, I should have done. Yes. No. That's not what I want at all. Well, let me open it in the other screen. All right, fine, whatever. Here and look at failures. Invalid operation exception. Indexing. So, all right. So here's some good. Some good things here. Move next. It fails. Error index method could not bind Twitch parameter. Twitch subscriptions of type iList. Make sure the parameter type is supported by the binding. Okay, so I guess I have to make some binding that makes sense, and that's fine. I could do an array of those, but no, we'll just change our data model. Why not? Like, yeah. So, one of the nice things about LinkedIn is that they have two shutdown periods. They shut down between Christmas and New Year's, and they shut down um, around the 4th of July. So we have 2 weeks of shutdown. And right now we're in the middle of the holiday shutdown. Um, and in addition to that, like Monday was technically a work day. We didn't have that off, but I took it off because we have unlimited DTO. So there's that too. Um, and since I'm quote unquote new, I've been there for almost 6 months. But because I'm new, I'm not on an on-call rotation, and the team and the technologies that I work on, we're just about to start having an on-call rotation because there's actual things running on it. So I got lucky, and there was just I'm not even on call right now, but it's very likely that in future shutdowns I will be on call for the technologies that I'm responsible for. Um, okay, so what's happening here, just to reiterate, is that it can't bind to the iList type, and that's fine. Um, that just means that I need to change my data model so that it can ingest something that can. Um, yeah, with great power comes extra work. Um, that's the real motto that they don't teach you, right? Like, hey, you're a domain admin. That's awesome, right? Until you realize that you have to fix all the domain problems, right? Uh, Luckily for me, I'm not a domain admin. Um, as much as I loved working on Active Directory for years, and as much expertise as I have on enterprise grade Active Directory services, I'm very glad to not be managing Active Directory anymore. Um, so yeah, I'd rather architect your Active Directory than manage it, though. Okay, so let's get back to the issue at hand here. Although I appreciate the conversation, last couple of streams have been, um, there haven't been a lot of comments, and I have been doing some pretty boring things and repetitive work, and I really could use the conversation. Sniff, sniff. Uh, so I need to adjust my data model. So this thing that I'm taking um, let me find the right piece. So in here, I'm trying to take in an iList of Twitch subscription. I'm just going to take in Twitch subscription data and not do that, and create a brand new class for it that is very similar to the other data models that we have. I'm just going to follow that model because why not? Um, it's very much like this. Right? So we've done this pattern a million times. We know we know this works. So that means we have to update our JSON. We also have to update some stuff in here. So Twitch subscriptions data, and then in here do um, var uh, Twitch subscriptions equal Twitch subscriptions data dot data. All right. So I have to update my JSON schema then, and it's going to look like this. this is going to be in a data piece. And then I need an outer object wrapper. And then I need some spacing. All right, that should be accurate. Okay, so now it shouldn't complain about the data type on that. I need to make sure that all the things are saved, and then I need to republish the application. So it's complaining about the fact that I have unsaved work in the register subscription. I'm going to ignore that and just go and push and then redeploy. And we'll watch some pretty screens for a while. Just scroll, scroll, and scroll some more. So I don't even know how, without App Insights, to find out these kinds of startup issues. Other than starting it locally, which I would have caught it if I ran it locally, that was a thing that couldn't be done. Still says that this failed to run. That's weird. I was able to catch this fast enough this time and actually see it. Cannot bind Twitch subscription data to type. What? Oh, that's because I don't have it defined as the HTTP bind. Okay, I think I got it now. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. No, it's... this is why. That's why we can't have nice things, folks. It was... So, the input... when you're doing... so when you're doing your own custom object on an HTTP trigger, you have to make sure that that is what gets the HTTP trigger piece. Now, it is supposedly theoretically possible to also take after this in HTTP request and actually take that in, but I don't need that. I'm not doing anything with headers or anything on this, so I don't care. So what was happening is that this little piece of code was still there, and because of how much screen real estate I don't have, I totally blanked out on that being a thing, and now that is gone, save this. I probably didn't even need to do this subscription data thing, but you know what? I've already done it. Let's just go forward and make this change here. Fix HTTP trigger binding in commit, push, publish. deploy, watch the pretty screens. Dude, I make so many mistakes. I am not perfect at all. Do not pretend to be. I'm a flawed individual. I think that's one of the benefits of this whole streaming coding thing is that like I'm not saying anyone thought I was perfect. I really hope no one did, but I think some of the perception of like if you just follow like bloggers and stuff like that is that they are they've got it all figured out because they do all of this work beforehand and then they figure out they make all these mistakes and then they blog about it. They don't talk about all the mistakes and trip ups that they're making across the entire process, right? Like they might say, watch out for this, and that's like blogger speak for like I screwed up really royally here, but I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm just going to say, watch out for this because this is a problem. Some things here about some more exceptions. I don't know how much of that is pertinent to the current execution model. Uh, yeah, that's probably from the last one. Let's just assume that that's fixed. Pay no attention to the man. How do I clear this? Clear output. That's how you clear that, by the way. All right. I have to do privacy mode because I'm not extremely confident it's not going to do some things. And by privacy mode, I mean you can sit here and stare at my browser that's showing an error message. And I still get a 500 error message. Go back over here. Reason phrase, bad requests, missing client secrets. Did they change how you do? Oh, it's deeper in. Way deeper in. Okay, so it gets in there, process request, get current subscriptions, begin, request URI, first URI, begin, request failed. So it failed on getting an OAuth, probably. The current subscription, get Twitch, begin. It's all asynchronous, so it's all out of order, which is hilarious. Success fault, bad request, response body, status 400 message, missing client secret. It is quite possible that the client secrets are not configured properly. That would definitely happen if that's not right. So on to the Firefoxes. Into the notification here and into the application settings. All right, so it's saying that the client secret is not correct. So I'm going to put this into other privacy mode while I look at the client secret here and make sure that it's correct. So that looks right. Need to make sure that some spelling is correct. So now that I'm back over in here, so where it's failing is in the yeah. So getting OAuth response failed basically. And that's like the first thing that runs, and it's in my Twitch client in here. And one of the things that's saying is that the client secret is not provided. So I'm making sure that this is right. I double check that it's right in my environment. In theory, that should be correct. Client secret is here. We pass this in as client secret here as a dictionary, auth request dictionary, static private string, OAuth client request body. All right, so I was trying to be clever with this. I think that I shouldn't be clever with it. I think that I should just do it. So basically, you need a body payload that is a URL encoded thing. So I'm going to create this payload manually instead of doing it the way that I was doing it. Buzzword bingo is fun, right? Like, what buzzword did I hit on though? Like, I could throw out a bunch here. At least I'm not saying serverless every 5 minutes, right? Like, I could be doing that, like, because I'm technically making a serverless app, and I could be saying serverless this, serverless that, and I'm not. So I'll give myself some credit for not being completely buzzwordy on all of this. But I digress, because it does need some color. I was trying to be clever up here and make this kind of readable and have this dictionary that then gets formatted into a string and all this stuff. I think that I'm just going to keep it simple, stupid, and do a string down here and make this var body. I don't think body's used, so I can do that. The body just needs to be some URL encoded gobbledygook. So we can do it just like this. By doing like equals, we're gonna come back to that later, and client secret equals and grant type equals. So if you really want to, you can write Azure functions in PowerShell, and they're working on a Azure Functions PowerShell v2 engine as well. Tyler has been involved in that. There's been some requests for some community feedback on how to do it. The The V1 PowerShell functions left much to be desired. I'll just put it that way. I did not prefer them, nor would I recommend anyone do them for any kind of production reasons. They never left a preview usage anyways. They were kind of really weird to use, but if you really want to, there was one that was like, I need to get rid of this. It's web utility dot URL encode. Come on. Man. I cannot type. I can't even select on the thing. What's going on? All right. Client ID. Come on. Here. Same with client secret. Machine learning mode. I have this really awesome idea for machine learning that I want to try out sometime in the future when, like, there isn't a million things to do at work. But I will say that the idea behind it is machine learning applied to pipelines, CI/CD pipelines, to provide all kinds of metrics and data that you wouldn't even think about doing. Jarvis, no, nothing that's advanced, right? Like I'm not Tony Stark level genius, right? Like I'm mostly like potato level genius at best. And I'm going to give up on the string here, and I'm just going to say, since I already have to do so much of the string in this, I'm going to see, like, you know, grant type client credentials. We don't need no hate in here. There. So now I can get rid of this. I can get rid of this. Go down here and get rid of this entire bad boy. We don't need you. Does that... Alright. Maybe we don't. We try to use the folding to delete it. It works really well with PowerShell to delete. Like if you fold something and delete the folded area, it does a pretty good job of axing the whole thing. Oh, on Android. I have no clue. So I get rid of that entire bulk of code and replaced it with a single line. Let's see if that fixes my insanity. I need to change this from auth client credential request body to why is that still... Let's get rid of this. This is another thing that I can get rid of. With this body right here. Yeah, like that should work. Now we test the client secret thingy. Yes, actually, that is exactly what we do. We test the client secret thingy. Also, I should probably have something down here in where this calls this and says like if null return. Uh, I could probably throw. I don't know. I vaguely recall there's some weird stuff about doing exceptions from within asynchronous calls, and I don't want to deal with it. Like, I really don't want to deal with it, and I really don't want to learn about it. I really don't want to go back and read through all of that. Um, at some point, the asynchronous stuff is going to have to be a study focus because I am really piss poor at it because you can't do it in PowerShell. Um, at least not the way you can in C Sharp, so I've never had enough exposure to it. That's not true, man. I have to do plenty of things I don't want to do. Does this have any unused up here? No, it's all, we're all good. We're all, there we go. Take care of that too while I'm in there. I'm sure there was some stuff that I had to add for that function or method that's no longer there. Okay, so maybe that fixed it. We'll do add here, address missing client secret, maybe. Push, and then publish, deploy. Yes, I do. Like, meetings, like unnecessary meetings. I wish there was some like predictive. Here's what machine learning should be doing, right? It should be going through my calendar and looking at all my past meetings, looking at the work that I've done, and then predicting which meetings are worthless and not needing that I don't need to go to. That would be good. Like, that would have some real potential for me if machines could figure that out for me, like quite a bit. I'd be really happy. All right, so it is live with the new. Here's the thing that I don't like, right? So like I'll join some meetings and then they'll spend the first 15 minutes of the meeting waiting for more people to show up. You know what? Don't. Like if you can't show up on time, you don't deserve to hear the first 15 minutes of the meeting. Just start the meeting. Don't wait for people. Like just go. I got stuff to do, man. Like for a 30-minute meeting, right? The first 15 minutes will be spent waiting for people to show up, 5 minutes introducing the topic, and then 10 minutes spent talking about the topic, and then 5 minutes spent talking about what you're going to do about the topic, and then the final like 5 minutes or whatever my math is bad on is people leaving early. So you never get anything done in these meetings ever. All right, so let's see where this failed. Get current subscription, begin, request URI. Let's begin. It failed. Ah, don't throw more stuff on the screen. I'm reading that. It's still saying the client secret is missing. Oh, great. So that means that I have to troubleshoot this offline without live streaming it because I need to make sure that the client secret is actually being populated. Um, that's just ridiculous. Like, I know the client secret is there. I know it's being sent. It's got to be. All right. So that's it for now. I've got to take this offline and troubleshoot this. So I'm gonna have to spit some secrets out to the screen, which is not fantastic. But I don't think there's any better way of doing this. So until then, thanks for watching.